so much, Jenna. I want to thank Jenna. She's been so wonderful. Jenna worked on the beautiful catalog that we created for the show. So thank you so much for that. I want to thank Stephen for having me here at the gallery. It's such an honor. I'm just thrilled to be here. I also want to thank Katrina, another gallery assistant that did the beautiful poster and the postcard. Katrina's at the other location right now, but want to thank her as well. And thank you all for being here. It means so much to me, and it's wonderful to see familiar faces and old friends in the audience, so thank you. I started this series just about 2 years ago, and I started conceiving of it not too long after I lost my dad. And we were very close, and this was a hard time for me, and I had the difficult task of going through his home and clearing out all of his belongings. But in doing this, I found many wonderful objects. Some were things that I remembered very much from childhood and held a lot of nostalgia and memory for me, and other things felt like new discoveries. There was the wonderful little souvenir plate from Copenhagen with the Little Mermaid on it, the statue of the Little Mermaid, and I remembered my mother reading me the story when I was a child, and it was just wonderful to find that again. There were also amazing glass pieces that I found kind of packed away that were not on display, but had been placed carefully in little boxes and put under the china cupboard. And it was kind of amazing to open those boxes and discover this aqua vase with the little ruffle on the top, and some of these beautiful little pieces like this cobalt glass piece. And it seemed like maybe they were tucked away for a special occasion, and it was wonderful to bring them back out into the light. And I thought I would really enjoy painting these objects, and in taking them back to the studio, it was a way for me to keep my dad close to me. So I got everything back to the studio, and I started arranging things on this window ledge that has a lot of beautiful natural light. And then I started hunting around my house to find some of my own treasures that would be fun to mix up with the objects that I had brought back from my father's house. And one of the special things that I came across was my grown son's childhood sippy cup. And it's just a little plastic cup with the little double handles. And of course, this held so many wonderful memories and incredible nostalgia for me. And I thought it would be very interesting, both visually and narratively, to combine things like the little plastic cup with the beautiful glass pieces that I found at my dad's house, plus treasured objects that my husband and I had collected throughout our marriage, like this beautiful lantern, my own little treasures like turtles from my mom's turtle collection, a little carved Mexican folk art angel that I love, and even my everyday coffee cups. And in this way, I could create these paintings where all of my family members could kind of coexist with our different timelines in this timeless space of the paintings. So that's how the still lifes got started. And as I was getting into this new body of work, my son was entering his 4th year at UVA, and soon he would be making plans to step into his own independent life. And he was finishing up his engineering degree, and soon he would get a wonderful job in New York City, and then he would get an apartment, and soon it was time for him to fly away. And I realized that with this body of work and in making these paintings, I was really saying two different kinds of goodbyes. One to my dad and one to my son's childhood. And within those goodbyes, there were elements of loss and grief, of course, but there were also elements of celebration. And we certainly celebrated the life well lived in my dad's case. And then, of course, there was a graduation party and celebrations for my son, and then wonderful excitement about him beginning a new phase in his life. So I'm really here for all of that. I want that whole range of emotion in my life and in my work, but it's not always easy. And in the midst of making these paintings, I remembered something really special that my mentor, Stanley Lewis, told me. And some of you know that I had the wonderful privilege of studying with Stanley Lewis for 2 years at my MFA program at AU, and then also 2 summers at Chautauqua. And it was one summer at Chautauqua, he said to me, "Painting can save you. Painting can save you." And I remember just being kind of in awe of this idea, and I wrote it down in my sketchbook. And of course, being a very young person at the time, I wasn't quite sure exactly what that meant to him personally. But I did know that when my mother died, when I was only 20 years old, I knew that creative work could be a kind of life raft, something that you can cling to in times like that. But my intuition was telling me that when Stanley said painting can save you, he was talking about something more than survival. It was more than that. And I've had 30 years to think about it. And I've come to my own personal understanding of what that means. And it's this: painting is the safe space that can hold all of human emotion. It can hold the joy and the sorrow. It can hold the celebrations and the goodbyes. And whether we're making paintings or looking at paintings, there is the possibility for even the most difficult emotions to be transmuted into something beautiful or something very interesting to look at. And maybe most importantly, painting is a world that we can share. Painting is a place where we can talk about what we see and what we feel, and that makes us feel less alone. And that's what we're doing here right now today. So thank you very much for being a part of that. And it's an aspect of art that I truly cherish. So I've always loved art history. Like most artists, I have lots of postcards pinned up all over the studio. And I truly believe that art history is alive, and paintings are always available to us as teachers. And we can have these conversations across the centuries with artists whenever we like, if we're just willing to take the time to look carefully at the paintings. So I really enjoy doing that. And one of my favorite examples of doing that is in this painting right here. The postcards really became a theme in the work where I was using them as teachers. So in this painting, I was really struggling with this whole area here, the very complex summer foliage, where there are a lot of very small pieces of color and light and leaves. And I remembered one of my very favorite paintings by Fairfield Porter. It's called The Plane Tree. And so I went and found my reproduction, and I pinned it up right here in the studio so I could look at the postcard and look at the tree out the window and look at my painting. And I was having this conversation, And I thought it would be good to do a transcription or a small copy of this painting. And I could have done it off to the side or on a different panel, but I thought, wouldn't it be fun to just do that inside my own painting and have this lesson, this conversation, this relationship with Fairfield Porter inside the work. So I enjoyed that so much. I began including postcards in many of the other paintings, and I welcome you to kind of take a look around to find some of those other moments. The tree is a very important theme in this series. It's a beautiful black gum, and we planted that when my son was a little boy, and we watched it grow up with our child. And to me, it's always been kind of a symbol of cultivating a family life alongside cultivating a tree in the way you fertilize it and care for it and have it pruned and give it kind of love and attention. So it's right outside the studio window, so I've painted it at all kinds of light every time of day, every season. And I think that points to my interest in those larger cycles and seasons of nature that hold and frame the more intimate narratives of our domestic and family life. Stephen and I thought it would be really nice to include a group of paintings of the tree that were done prior to the Still Life series, so you can see a whole collection of the tree paintings that were done a little earlier. I feel like the tree is a nice bridge from my earlier landscape work into this work. Many of you know, before I started the Still Life series, I was painting landscapes for many years, and my interest was always in the landscapes in my neighborhood or really just right in my own backyard, the tree being included often in those paintings. And even though my landscape work might not be considered narrative, there was always a kind of personal subtext for me that had to do with creating a home and putting down roots and observing the passing of time. And those themes certainly hold true through this series, and it was really nice to kind of bring the tree with me into the Still Life work. And then lastly, I'd like to share that my fundamental love in painting is really for the language of painting itself. Color, light, temperature, shape, form, space. So my process in creating the still lifes always does start with color and shape. And then those personal narratives are going to kind of come along naturally and dovetail together because of the nature of the objects that I'm choosing to bring along. I fell in love with painting when I was 16 years old, and it's interesting to me how my excitement around color and light has really never changed, and I still feel that same excitement so many years later. And of course, not all viewers are going to know my personal stories or know my personal narratives. And so the paintings really need to work on a visual level. Painting is a visual language. So I would invite everyone to approach the paintings and allow their own reveries. Welcome your own reveries. Welcome your own memories and associations, because it really is those things that will bring a lasting meaning to the work for the viewer or the collector. So I hope you enjoy the show, and I'm very happy to take any questions. Yes?
This painting here is such an extraordinary arrangement. It had to be a special occasion, and I wondered.
That's a
you'd like
great,
to share?
that's a great question. I actually just went and bought that arrangement for myself. The special occasion was the painting. And I had been, of course, including potted flowers and bulbs and kind of smaller bits and pieces of flowers. These are hydrangeas cut from my garden. But I had been looking at Dutch still life, and I was just yearning to paint kind of a big, sumptuous bouquet. So I went out and bought myself one, and it was really, really fun to combine that with some of those blue ceramic pieces and have the little postcard in there as well. Yes?
How long does it take you to paint that? Is it a couple of weeks, several days?
That's a great question. This was several months. My process tends to be very slow, and I love to just take my time and allow things to move and change and evolve. These hydrangeas looked more like this at the beginning, and they slowly dried and lost their color, and I just kept going with the painting. So I think this painting kind of stretched long into the summer, and often I will start to work from the painting away from the motif towards the end. So there'll come a point in especially a larger work that is very going to take a long time. It will reach a point where I feel like I've gotten everything I can from observing, and I'll start to allow memory to inform the painting and some invention, and I'll be trying to resolve something that I felt through all those months.
Do you have several paintings going at a time?
Yes. I always have many paintings going at the same time.
So when you're talking about it taking a month or two and you're working through it, are you moving objects around? You're using natural light, which is going to change, even though it is controlled.
Yes.
Because it's coming in through a window, but everything that's happening outside is changing. How do you make your decisions about where to land?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and it's something I'm constantly trying to figure out, and it's different every time. There's usually kind of a moment of light that sparks the excitement of the painting, and there was an idea about this being kind of backlit, and I loved how this light was hitting this part of the windowsill, and there was this kind of bright, almost chartreuse green coming through behind the flowers, and then these intricate shadows, and there was a relationship with these intricate shadow and light pieces that related to the pattern in the lantern. So I had kind of those things in mind that were important to me, and there were times when those things would become confused or lost, and then I would have to kind of re-clarify and bring it back. And sometimes I'll have an intention, but then discover something very new and different, a new idea about the light that I want to emphasize, and then I'll have to kind of pivot and change course, and I'll pursue that, and maybe it doesn't work out, and then I circle back to the original idea.
Do you ever take pictures along the way and then kind of look at the process?
Yes, and in fact, I'm really happy you asked that, because I took a lot of photos of this, and I wanted to make a little time-lapse video. And I could show it to you on my phone.
Imagine, like the way that the flowers in the center, the hydrangeas were really white. It wouldn't work as well as
Yes.
you did, because they
Exactly.
round and then work better with the color in the background.
Exactly. That's a wonderful observation, and that was part of the problem. I had a inside light source on this side, and then there's the light coming in the window, and working with two light sources can be very confusing. And when this was light, but it was also light behind it, it was fighting, and I had to find a way to balance that and let the light fall as it may, let the tree float back into the distance, and allow everything to kind of settle. And it's probably not true to one moment in time.
Sure.
It's many moments in time,
But
kind of
consistent.
embedded.
It doesn't look like you did one part and then another part separate. Like it's got a
I hope it has a
cohesion.
unity.
Yeah.
Yeah, a cohesion.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes?
I'm curious, which piece did you finish first and which did you finish last?
Oh, that's a great question. The first one was this little one here. It's just it's the sippy cup, a glass piece, and the little angel.
The one up on the stage?
Yes,
Okay.
the little painting with the angel was the first one. And then the smaller one on the stage here, where I start to bring in more of the objects with the child's cup. And then the first larger painting was this one. And the one next to it as well was kind of early on. And you can see the snow out the window in this painting, so you know that was still in the winter. And then where did it end up? The very last painting was the one in the window, so feel free to get up on the stage to look at that or go outside the gallery. It's a great view of it from outside into the window. And that's the night studio. And that painting was important for me to do because most of the show is looking out the window or different windows in my home, being inside looking out. And I thought it would be really interesting to flip that perspective and be outside looking in. And the studio is depicted with snow on the ground when it's kind of dark and cold outside, and the studio is lit up. And I remember being outside and looking in that window and noticing how the studio looks like a little incubator. And it really feels like that to me. It's a happy place where I feel that my creativity is fully nurtured and supported, and I have actively created a space. And my husband, of course, helped me do that in renovating the studio, and really together we made that a special place for me. But I fill it with plants and flowers and special objects and things that I love. And I wanted to kind of show that in that painting, so you would have a sense of what that little world is like for me inside.
You painted that in the snow.
I did not exactly paint that in the snow.
At night.
So would you like to hear how I made that painting?
Yes, please.
This was an interesting hybrid process because of some of the physical logistics. So most of the work is really, almost all the work is done from observation, where I can kind of be there with the still life, even if it's through different seasons or along through many months, or taking many weeks or months to do. This one I couldn't really be there during the ice storm painting outside at night. So I did take a photo, and I worked out kind of the design of it from a photograph. I then went outside and I spent a couple hours mixing the colors. So there was a time kind of right before sunset, maybe an hour, you had maybe an hour before sunset where it was starting to get dark and the light inside could glow in the way that I wanted to see it, but there was still enough light outside to see what you were doing. So I mixed all the color, and I did that over several days because I only really had maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, but really just 1 hour of good light to work. So I mixed the color outside, and then I didn't have time to paint it, so I'd go back in, then I'd mix the color again, and I kind of worked out this whole palette from observation. And I started painting it outside, and it was really just kind of one session that I could wrangle this thing out there and kind of put down some notes for myself, and then I could complete it in the studio. But it really was the color harmonies that I had to gain from observation. I couldn't have just made it up or worked on it from the photo because of the unique glowy nature of that lighting situation. So that's how that painting came together. A little different process for me.
Did you keep them in the freezer? Paint it?
No, I haven't done that, but I hear that works. My palette is too big to put in the freezer, but that's a good tip. You can keep paint wet by putting it in the freezer.
How did you keep it wet then?
Well, it will skin over, yeah, but you can spray it with oil. Sometimes it'll skin over, but I kind of work it into a little blip that will reduce the surface area, and you can just cut the skin and keep using it day after day. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about your backgrounds, particularly with the trees and the forest, because they're so like specific and hyper detailed and then yet very abstract, and what is your process for making something like that?
Sure, yeah. I really began painting as a landscape painter. So when I first started painting in high school, I painted outside, and my very dear high school art teacher, Teresa McDaniel, showed me Fairfield Porter when I was 16 years old. And I had an immediate fascination with color and light, and also a little bit of that abstraction and simplification that you see in his work. So I did feel very devoted to observational work from the beginning, but I was looking at a lot of 20th century landscape painters at that time. I think the most important thing about landscape painting for me is just being present. It's a lot about sitting with the view and feeling the air and the light, and just having that beautiful experience of being outside and allowing all your senses to take in everything that you see and feel and hear. So I think that's important, and what I'm trying to capture in the landscape work. And of course, it's evolved a lot over the years. When we moved to our home about 20 years ago, it became important to me to paint the landscape of my daily experience. I do like to take a sketchbook when we travel, and in certain cases I've done painting series about faraway places, but I guess I'm a homebody, and I've just always loved having a deep and special connection with a place. And the most important place, of course, for me is my home. And there's a lot to see there, even though it's a kind of a regular suburban neighborhood, but they're beautiful views, and there's the woods behind my house, and there's my special tree, and I find it to be endlessly fascinating, and there's an infinite number of paintings that can be done just in my backyard. Yes?
So many of these paintings, almost all of the paintings, are of specific objects and things that you've arranged, and yet there are two paintings where there is a life form. Can you talk about the significance of including that life form?
This question comes from my husband, who would like me to share about a special life form. That is our dog Dune, like a sand dune. And he is a very special part of my life. Painting can save you, but a dog can save you as well. And we got Dune as a puppy after we had lost our 13-year-old dog Holly, who had grown up with my son and had kind of marked that period of his life. And we got little Dune, and my dad was ill and his health was failing, and I knew we were going to lose him as well. And sometimes you think, the last thing I need is a puppy right now, with a lot of things going on with the family, but he was a wonderful companion, and he's with me all the time, and he spends a lot of time with me in the studio, and we're just great pals, and he's just part of my world as much as everything else in the studio. It was really fun to put him in this painting in the bathroom. So I had taken my easel and the paints up to the bathroom, because I love this green tile. And I love how it looked in the afternoon in the fall with the light coming in and that beautiful tree out the window. And of course he came with me, and I wasn't planning to have him in the painting, but he just made himself comfortable and laid down next to the tub. And I thought, okay, Dune wants to be in the painting. So I just let him be there, and I painted him right in. And he also appears in the painting over here, where he was looking out the window. And it was kind of funny. He was in the studio with me, as he always is, and I went outside. There are French doors in my studio that go out to the garden, and I went outside for a minute, and I looked back, and there he was with his little face right in the window, watching me, waiting for me to come back. And I saw these incredible reflections in the window of the garden behind me, but I could also see these deeper layers of space into the studio, and then Dune's little face pressed against the glass with the objects on the windowsill. And I thought that would be another perspective, like the night studio, of looking into the studio from the outside. And again, Dune kind of inserted himself there. And I thought it would be really fun to include him.
Have you learned anything about truly seeing and looking through your dog?
Oh, what a wonderful question. Yes, that's so true. It's so true. Well, I've actually thought about that. There's something about how a dog is always happy to see you. It never gets old. And there's kind of a beautiful freshness in the way a beloved pet sees the family members. And I was thinking about that in how I see the tree. And when you paint something over and over again so many times, it's easy to kind of forget to look, because you think you know what it looks like. And you may kind of start to rely on what you think you know about the tree rather than what is there. And while layers of memory and kind of the emotions that are attached to your history with something can play into the painting in a really nice way, I think it's important to see it freshly, to love it freshly, and to really look at what's there and fully accept what is there and what is new and what is fresh. And maybe that's true when you're looking at a tree or you're looking at a loved one, that you are looking at your child, that you want to see who they are in that moment as they are and fully love and accept that, and not what you hope it would be or wish it would be or something that you remember from the past. So that whole idea of having fresh excitement and presence is wonderful, and Dune certainly embodies that. Yes?
This painting here seems different to me than the
Yes.
others, and I wondered how did that unfold?
Great question. That is one of my favorite pieces, and it is quite different. So I started getting interested in the window at night. So obviously the window during the day is very beautiful and the light comes in, but sometimes I want to paint at night. And it was interesting to me how the glass just kind of becomes this mysterious black background, this kind of void. And I have a favorite Spanish painter, Juan Sanchez Coton, and he did this amazing painting of a cantaloupe and fruit and some objects on a windowsill with this black window behind with quite a lot of negative space in the painting. And I absolutely loved this painting. I was very fascinated by it. And I felt that that black void was not foreboding, but rather it was this kind of beautiful mystery that spoke to the infinite, the things that we don't know and understand that go along with this earthly world and the beautiful things from nature that we have, like cantaloupes and apples and feathers and birds and all the things that he liked to paint. So I found my postcard of this exact painting, which is from 1602, and I decided to create a kind of homage to that cantaloupe painting by Coton. So I very carefully cut the cantaloupe exactly as close as I could get it as he had in his work, and I hung the apple, and then I used a few of my own personal objects that kind of speak to my life and my time, and tried this out. And of course I included the postcard of his painting as a little reference, and also the Golden Cup by Zurbarán, another wonderful Spanish painter. And that cup reminded me of my yellow mug. So it was, again, another way of having this conversation across the centuries with these wonderful Spanish artists that I've loved looking at for many years. And including them in a painting actively in this way is just a really special way to have a conversation.
And you left the tube of paint?
And I left the tube of paint. Yeah, I put my little tube of paint in there as a little nod to the studio and to the contemporary world of painting that I'm inhabiting. Yes. Yes.
Is there anything you could point out that you noticed you've gotten better at? Like if there's a certain technique, like, oh, finally get into this painting, like, oh, I finally got this
Oh.
type of thing
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, the hydrangeas are very hard to paint. And I repainted this hundreds of times. The problem with the hydrangeas, and also with crepe myrtle, so this kind of type of flower, is a volume that is made up of a million tiny petals. So there are many little pieces that are creating this bigger volume. And the trap you can fall into is trying to paint every single small piece while kind of losing track of the whole. And it's very, very challenging, but I love it and it's fascinating. And I think I struggled with it in a lot of the paintings, but it started to kind of come together, particularly in this one, where I started to allow myself to leave some of the areas in shadow more unified into one shape, and just pick and choose which little pieces of light on the petals I was going to pull out. That you don't need to do every one, that you can almost say too much and then it falls apart. So there's really a kind of poetry to approaching those very complex flower forms. And you'll notice I included hydrangeas in a lot of the paintings because I was really interested in kind of trying to figure that out. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
Did you look at Bonnard at all?
Of course I did. Yes, I looked at Bonnard. Yes, I love Bonnard. And you might notice that in this painting, there's a little postcard of one of the Bonnard bathers. So I've learned a lot from Bonnard. The way I approached the water in the tubs was very different from Bonnard, because I approach it, it's more of a glassy, solid shape, whereas Bonnard has much more of the broken color across the water. But that's how I was seeing it. But what I have really taken from Bonnard is his understanding of complementary color relationships and warm and cool. And I've studied that over and over, and I'm always learning so much from Bonnard about color. So I try to incorporate that, and there's a lot of relationships of green and red, and purple and yellow, and blue and orange. And of course, I'm taking so much of that from what I've been able to glean from Bonnard, even if the touch is different than my sensibility in the way I put the paint on.
Maybe for the water, but not for the rest of it, like the way that you painted the dog.
Yeah, yeah.
The dog is sitting.
Yeah, I think that's true. Mm-hmm.
Vibrates.
Yeah, yes. Fairfield Porter has dogs in his paintings too. Oh, and I also wanted to give a shout out to David Hockney. He's a beloved artist that is so important to me, and he just recently passed. And I've been devoting myself to reading all of his books. And the thing I love about Hockney is his lifelong love and enthusiasm for painting. He just made himself a student of art history and delved so deeply into the art of close looking at paintings, and his devotion to observation, his approach to landscape, which is very much about being fully present to all the sights and sounds of a place that you love. His embracing of technology, even into his old age, his willingness to learn how to draw on an iPad. A human being who was here for all of it, that welcomed all of human experience, all the emotions, all the possibilities of being alive, just inspired me so very much. Particularly during COVID, I remember reading an article about him painting in France during COVID, and he was able to isolate at this beautiful property, and he said, they can't cancel the spring. And that really touched me. It was really a special thing that he gave us all. They can't cancel the spring, and there were certain joys that needed to continue, and they could in those ways.
He was probably drawing on that iPad.
Yes,
last day.
yes, yes.
All right, does anyone have any further comments or questions for Laura before we wrap up? Any sweet remarks?
I'm a fan of reflection
Yeah.
work, and I love the reflection in the nighttime pictures of like the pink rose, that reflection in the
Oh, yes. Thank you.
I love that.
There. Mm-hmm.
And it's in several of your others, but that's the one that really hit me.
Yeah, there's quite a few reflections in this piece. Yeah, that was a very interesting thing to observe. And it was hard to capture, and I had to really kind of see how close those value relationships are. It's almost a whole color world within the world in that dark glass. And the color relationships and the shifts of light and dark are very close together and very subtle, because the whole thing is much darker than everything else. And that was kind of a new thing for me to learn. Thank you so much.
Any last comments?
I mean, your brush strokes are lovely. They're so pretty. I love how within like all the objects that you paint, like within the trees, like in the shadow areas, you don't necessarily see the leaves, but you see the brush strokes going in different directions, which makes you think of leaves. And like the wall has texture because the brush strokes are in different directions.
Thank you. Yes, I really almost imagine touching what I'm seeing when I'm painting. And everything that I see as I'm touching it has a kind of texture or a directionality. And I try to see the world as a configuration of color and light rather than a configuration of leaves and twigs and objects. And in that way, those pieces of color and light and their textures and directionalities kind of overlay the actual things. And I think that's kind of what the touch is about. But thank you so much for noticing that.
I see the Blue Ridge in the background in the fall.
Yes, yes.
That's nice to be able to see that.
Yes, and only when the leaves are down, we see just a little sliver of that over the tops of the trees. And I really love that. There's a special spot in our neighborhood where you're kind of at the top of the hill before driving down out of our neighborhood. And you can see a little piece of the mountain above the tree line. And I've painted that many times. But the Blue Ridge is kind of a symbol of this place. I'm in Charlottesville, but all of Central Virginia, it is a place that kind of looks to the Blue Ridge. It's something that makes us feel at home. It's something that we identify with here. And it is nice to include that when I can.
But it was one of our artificial boundaries at one time in our history,
Right.
from the King of England. And don't go past that.
Interesting.
We did.
Of course we did, right.
When you create a boundary, it's going to be crossed.
It's going to be crossed.
I bet the upper reaches of your home, higher up on the floors, you get a.
Yeah, you can see it a little better. Yes. Yeah.
That's the nice thing about the trees, they do give you a perspective every season.
Yes, yes, and it's interesting how when the leaves are down, there's just this vast space that you can see through all the way to the mountain, and then in the summertime, those leaves just kind of wall off the backyard, and it almost feels like a little enclosed room. And that kind of intimacy of the backyard in the summer is also really nice in a totally different way. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.